Hi, everybody, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Caroline Caruthers with Caruthers and Jackson, and today I have the absolute pleasure of talking with Lana Feng and Greg Kostello, who both work at Huma.AI. So welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
So we've had the pleasure of actually talking before, so I can't wait to everybody else hear the wonderful things that you're doing. But before we dive into Huma.AI, can we just know a little bit more about you? So Lana, can I ask you first, give us a little bit of background about how you've got to where you are now?
Great. It's an unconventional journey for sure. So I came from a family of physicians. So my parents always wanted me to become a doctor and go into med school and what have you. And I was being the sort of the young, foolish self and said, no, I wanted to do stuff at scale. So I ended up going to grad school and getting a PhD and went into kind of biomedical research. So I'm always really being kind of very entrepreneur. So being an entrepreneur, building new businesses within a larger entity. So before founding Huma.AI, I was hired to build a pharma business at a company called Genoptics. It's a leader in kind of testing bone marrows for heme malignancy patients. So grew that business from $0 to $45 million in 4 years. And that was the reason Novartis bought the whole company for $500 million. So that's kind of my journey into global pharma. Really enjoyed the experience at Novartis Oncology Business Unit. That was also the golden age for Novartis at the time. So, but really running into challenge of how do we kind of leverage data, right, to get better answers out of the data as a subject matter experts. So really kind of trying to fill that gap using Huma.AI, AI and natural language processing to kind of empower SMEs like myself to become data scientists so that data scientists can focus on more complex stuff like building models and do complex analysis.
Sounds good. Good. Greg, can you follow that one?
Yeah, I'll do my best. There is some commonality, although my background is all technology, really complement to Lana's. I also come from a family of physicians and healthcare practitioners. I am the black sheep. I decided to go into the tech world, but now we've all come full circle and I'm back into the healthcare arena. So my background, I started off as a software engineer at Apple. I was the CTO for a public company. I worked on the core engine that was known as Firefox. And I built large-scale SaaS platforms used by organizations like ESPN, Cisco, Disney, and NASA. I really wanted to combine my enterprise background and working with data, working with large data since the late 90s, with my consumer background and really help the people who need to get answers easily get those answers without having to be technical like myself.
Wow, there's an awful lot of skills between the two of you there. But I feel a little bit like I'm not worthy. But we can carry on with the interview. So what inspired you to create Huma.AI? Lana,
so maybe, yes, it's maybe my experience, right? Like I mentioned, being a domain expert at Novartis, right? We went from Genoptics, we supported 50 trials to 300 trials, right? So particularly, my background in precision medicine, and Novartis at the time was a leader in basically targeted therapy for cancer. So so data accuracy is really important. And then I had to wait 2 to 3 weeks to get a single answer out of my data. And accuracy is really critical. For example, if a gene mutation has a 10% prevalence, that means I need to screen 1,000 lung cancer patients to get to 100. But then if the prevalence, we make a mistake, that prevalence is 1%, that means I have to screen 10,000 lung cancer patients to get to that 100. That trial will fail for sure, right? So that kind of really illustrates the importance of accuracy of the data. So as a SME, I know the questions, I know my data, I know the questions I want to answer out of data, but I don't know how to write SQL queries. So it's very much that kind of, can we build, and of course, at the time, we have Siri, of course, we have Google, and Alexa just came, become really kind of a household. Everyone has an Alexa, right? Can we leverage those consumer capabilities in technology to kind of empower domain experts to become their own data scientists? That's really so that we can accelerate drug development, right? That's kind of our mission. That's kind of the central theme. So Greg's background makes perfect sense, as you guys.
I was going to say, Greg, this is where your black sheep of the family background really just come to help, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was very interested in this field for a long time. but the technology just wasn't there. And then the seminal article came out, Attention's All You Need, which talked about sort of where modern AI could go. And of course, that changed the entire industry. So when that came out, I got together with Lana and said, this is the time to do this. And so that's how we formed a company.
Sounds absolutely amazing. I'm sure there'll be a lot of reasons why people will be very glad you have. I mean, before we get into it, I think it's probably worth mentioning everybody's talking about generative AI at the moment. I mean, oh boy, you're riding the wave before everybody else did. So that's incredible. But it's getting a lot of negative press as well. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, so we certainly see the press. In fact, I actually wrote a bit of an article about hallucinations. So I think the negative press, there's some truth in that, but of course, there's some hyperbole as well. I think for us, what we did is we assume there's a saying Lana always has, like assume failure. And so therefore, you have to work around the failures and issues of generative AI. At the same time, generative AI is able to give us answers we could never get before. And it understands the way humans think, of course, because it's trained on human data. And so when you think about the complexity that goes on in healthcare data, especially around all this unstructured data, having that understanding of the field is how we apply it. But we don't rely on the answers in the data. That comes from the data itself.
No, that makes perfect sense. Lana, do you want to add to that? Or I've got another question about AI for good for you as well.
Great. Artificial intelligence, right? It just grabs so much attention. And then, ChatGPT, what garnered 1 million users in 5 days. I think now 7 months into this week, they have like 1 billion users, right? I've never seen an AI technology or technology period as such fast adoption. So it's changing our lives as we speak, right? So as a life science practitioner, I think what we approached generative AI very cautiously. And, we were lucky enough to kind of being able to work with OpenAI, access those models a year ago. And our first thing, we basically said it has to be private, it has to be secure, and it has to be able to analyze our clients' private data. And it has to be accurate, right? We have to solve a hallucination problem, and it has to be transparent. The generated content has to be traceable back to your original data. So that's kind of our guiding principle for building a generative AI platform for this domain, right? So that so far is we're definitely on the right track, just seeing the client's response to this approach.
So what kind of examples would you give people who are listening that, the problems that your solution solves?
Okay, great question. So life sciences, right? We are in, developing drugs for patients, and it used to be like pretty sleepy, right? We don't get a lot of publicity until COVID, and then also COVID showed us you can bring a new medicine to market in like 3-4 years, right? Rather than the 10-year. $2.3 billion price tag and timeline. So the challenge really is we have all this data, right? And the challenge is that we can't make those data for good use. And that's because first is data is highly complex, right? We're talking about a highly regulated industry. We're talking about patient data. We're talking about, HCPs interactions, right? How do they see drug? We're running, more importantly, clinical trials. So highly complex. And also they're in different data systems. Some of our clients have over 100 different data systems that don't talk to each other. And more importantly, lastly, is this 80% of the healthcare life sciences data is what we would call unstructured. They're documents, they are free text, even in tabular data sets. So basically the industry heavily relying on experts like myself manually curating the data. For example, if publications, everyone uses, right, from research to medical teams and even commercial and post-market. So, there's 35 million publications in PubMed, right? You put in keywords, it surfaces like 100 papers. You have to read them literally one at a time, right? Our solution, not only being able to, from the 35 million articles, using the traditional NLP transformers to surface the relevant publications, and then use generative AI to give you that higher level summaries or key takeaways. And then bring in the citation so that experts can kind of verify to see whether those generated key takeaways are valid and accurate.
You can just imagine the amount of time that saves some very smart people and gets them to the answer, helps them move through the more mundane things, the really smart things. Incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah, we actually have return on investment studies. I'm showing that the clients basically went from time to value from months to answer those key questions from publications to minutes.
You can't, that's the kind of stats you
Pretty
can't argue
exciting.
with. Yeah, that's incredibly exciting. Absolutely exciting. So, I mean, because that fits wonderfully into the whole AI for good, because I know we've talked about the challenges, but, for me, I'm a glass half full kind of person. I like to focus on the positive, and I do think that AI can be used as a game changer for moving us forward. And it's this kind of technology that I think fits perfectly into that camp.
We
So,
absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think the other thing too is we always include the human intelligence at every step of the way. And this final output that Lana was talking about is then reviewed and used by real human beings, physicians, and scientists to analyze the data. So it's a huge accelerator for them, but it never leaves humans out of the loop.
I love that. I sometimes talk about this idea that we really should be using data as some kind of fantastic mountain or hill, and it just allows us to see further from it. I think
That's
that
great.
wonderful way to do it.
Just
So
to
what
add
kind
to what Greg said, sorry, Caroline,
No, please.
AI for good, right? We're really seeing this, how we can help these life sciences companies to bring life-saving drugs to market faster, right? So we're seeing, I like to say, AI is not going to replace you. It's actually experts, people who use AI will replace you, right? We very much see this as a kind of a tool to be able to empower experts, right? Just even ChatGPT, you can see if you understand the problem better, you ask the question better, give it context and give examples, you get better answers, right? And then to see OpenAI is now going to focus more on enterprise applications, and then using like ChatGPT is going to be their only consumer product. You really see that the industry is moving, say, how can we leverage this really powerful platform to solve real world problems?
And it's moving so fast, isn't it? Which is, I think, amazing. What are some of the challenges that you've faced in getting to where you are with, getting the solution out, getting it with your customers? Lana, can you start? What kind of challenges have you sort of faced from your side that you've had to overcome?
I want to say trust is probably the biggest thing, right? Is that, AI, like, do I trust this? Do I trust my data with it, right? Is Huma going to basically, we don't do this, but it's like, are you just going to basically put my data into ChatGPT, right? And then then of course, hallucination are the generated content. The generative content, is it accurate, right? Can I verify it? I think this is all goes into kind of trust. That's the first thing, right? And I think there is a lot of fear about, is it going to take away my job? So that basically that education piece, right? And then what we just said, AI for good, we're actually empower you to free you up to do more kind of high value expert stuff rather than doing manual curation of your data. And then I think lastly, we're seeing is that build versus buy. There's a lot of this very much has become a kind of a C-suite spy or discussion, right? Great, we're talking with the CDO magazine at the C level. Everyone's company needs, basically they say, we need a generative AI position. That's first and foremost thing. And second thing is that, what are the use cases that we can leverage generative AI, right? And then thirdly, more important, can we bring value within the next 6 months? That is this year, right? So you can kind of sense that sense of urgency, and then also, how do we do this?
It was extremely fortuitous that that we came when we did. Timing is everything. For a long time, we had to convince people that an NLP, natural language processing interface, was the right thing. Then, lo and behold, ChatGPT takes off, and everybody wants that solution. So, some of the barriers we had, I think, are eliminated. But I'd like to get back to what Lana was also saying, and I think she sort of built this into the company, the way of thinking. In technology, we sort of have a say, we move fast to break things, but that does not work in science. And so as part of this, we built in verification, validation, and transparency from day one. And I think that really helped us. I think the more we put that as part of the platform where our end users could see exactly what's going on behind the scenes, essentially what's happening every step of the way, I think that helped alleviate a lot of their concerns. I think for anybody who's sort of venturing into this, I think everyone's going to have that. Maybe not as deeply as life sciences, but if you're trusting a financial decision or some other decision, you want to know how the system came up with the answer and to be able to trace it back.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Greg, for joining me today. I massively appreciated it and have thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. And for everybody else, please visit cgomagazine.tech for additional interviews, of which there are many and fascinating. So thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.